Looks like he's just been crying. Sounds good? Everything's good?
I see Aravandi.
Are we live and going?
Yeah.
Well, hello, everybody. How are you? Hello, how is everybody? Good. Good gravy. We're actually here today.
I see Spirited Book and Marples.
Yes, a Spirited Book. Our dear, lovely friend Spirited Book was actually saying, hopefully it's a real show today. As if me sitting there for 16 straight days reading The Lord of the Rings was not a real show for some possible reason.
How was that? How was that?
It was almost as good as being on Real Time with Bill Maher. It was really a lovely experience. Hello, everybody.
It's a terrible experience.
No, it's not. Well, it's not a terrible experience. What are you talking about?
What do you
Everybody's favorite atheist pothead comedian on HBO? That's not a terrible experience. That's hilarious.
Bill
Anyways, yeah, Bill Maher. Ah, he knew it. Knew exactly what I'm talking about. By the way, that was Francisco. He was just on our show. Hey, come on back. Join the show. Say hello to all the fans. Hello, everybody. Yes, hello to all of you wonderful folks out there in TV land. It's really nice to have you guys back on the air. It's really nice to be on the air again, actually. And Aravandi, Marfels, I see in that chat room lots and lots of friendly people. Lots of wonderful folks. This is Torn Tuesday. Before we go any further, a little bit of chatter goes a long way. There's a live chat room where you guys can participate in our live weekly show, Torn Tuesday. This is where we are. Welcome. Welcome aboard. I am your host this evening, Clifford Broadway, longtime writer and contributor to theonering.net. That's Torn, theonering.net. Welcome aboard, everybody. I see him, anonymous 69701, or anonymous 87841. Wow, I need a new set of glasses. Actually, these are brand new glasses. I should be able to read that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Perhaps you could say this is our first regular format show of 2016. And indeed, it is, because since Christmas morning, we endeavored to do a bit of a crazy thing. It was very satisfying to do this. But what we endeavored to do, in case you missed it, in case you were living under a Numenorian statue for the past month. Oh, it's Hannah. Hi, Hannah. Good to have you. Lovely to have all of our friends on the show today. On Christmas morning, we decided to do a little stunt, and it was a readathon. The idea was to do a reading, a live stream show that was just me sitting in a comfortable rocking chair with a dwarven axe and a few cool dwarf toys right here, and my dirty Gandalf. My dirty Gandalf was very entertaining, and people coming by and looking at me in the window as if it was like watching a human being in a fish tank. Yes, we do have a show. But the idea of doing a live reading was just perhaps biting off more than I could chew, but I chewed it anyways, and we did it. We did The Hobbit in only 2 days, but that's because we did about a 10-hour day. A 10-hour day reading The Hobbit, and my voice is not the same. After the, some toys and a Kylo Ren mug. Yeah, there it is. I had some toys and I had my Kylo Ren mug. Very entertaining. And I also had a long stem wizard's pipe. Look at this. And I had a really cool dusty old lantern. And even better, even cooler, look at this. Bilbo, Bofer, everybody's here. The gang's all here. But even better than that, there was this wonderful R2-D2 dragon that our lovely friend Hannah made for us. And I also have the Totoro. My neighbor Totoro was made into a cute dragon. There's a little handmade toy. And I think it's nearby somewhere. I don't see it, but it's right here in this staging area somewhere. So we had a lot of wonderful things happen. Over that month and a half period, my gosh, was it really a month and a half? No. It was only 16 or 17 days. So we did the readathon, and after 2 days of The Hobbit, I did The Lord of the Rings, starting with the prologue. That's right, starting the book with Concerning Hobbits. Yes, it was so awesome. Hello, everyone. It's really great to see all of our friends on the show. So then after we did 14 more days of The Lord of the Rings, we had special guests who came on board. Most notably, you'll remember that Sean Astin came in to read a chapter. He is the guest reader. He did The Choices of Master Samwise, which was really lovely. Yes, hello, Ellen Design. Look, Ellen is here, and Ellen, Troy, Tolkien Girl. And there's even a chance that more guests may arrive. I got really lucky with our existing friendships and really good relationships that we had with Sean and some of the other actors and people who wanted to come and join the readathon. It was very successful, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed, very, very much. It was a lovely experience, and I got to do something I've always wanted to do. I got to read Professor Tolkien out loud and have a wonderful experience, you know, just doing my own version of reading Tolkien as if I was sitting in front of the library with all the school kids gathered around in the reading corner, and there I was putting my own little spin on reading Tolkien. I'm sure that there were certain nights when my voice was more thrashed than it was on other nights, so it was a little touch and go, as Gandalf explained. But I tell you something, the experience was very powerful. It was a very powerful experience, to be honest with you. And at the very end of the Grey Havens, I wept like a little 7-year-old girl who fell down and scraped her legs. And I just wept and wept and wept. Really, not embarrassed to say so. I am not by any stretch of the imagination ashamed. I'm not chagrined by any means. The fact is, whenever you read The Lord of the Rings, it doesn't matter how jaded or hardened your Pharaoh's heart may be. By the time you get to the end of the book, you are transformed, and you will weep like a 7-year-old girl who fell down and scraped her knee. And I wept and wept and wept. I did. Hey, Anonymous, that was censored, whatever it was you just said. Yes, that readathon was something else. Thank you, Marfles. I appreciate the support. Oh, yes. Oh, Hannah, I'm so glad. I love these little dragons. And I love the thoughtfulness. What a thoughtful, wonderful audience you guys have always been. Hey there, Stephanie. Love Lord of the Rings, and so do we. Many things have happened. There has been news to talk about in the world of Tolkien, and there's even news to talk about in the world of What If. One of the main things that we're going to talk about is a lead story that appeared in The Independent on Sunday the 10th of January, which was a significant day for many people for many reasons, not the least of which the passing of the most mercurial and most talented god of all rock and roll gods. We lost David Bowie on January 10th. But also, there was this fantastic and very touching story that appeared in The Independent UK about Royd Tolkien's brother, Mike Tolkien. And Mike Tolkien, as you know, was a dear, dear friend of ours, as Royd and his brother are dear friends of all of ours. And this story says how Mike Tolkien's legacy lives on in the bucket list that he left for his brother, who died of Lou Gehrig's disease, otherwise known as motor neuron disease. So if you remember everybody out there in the world going crazy and viral trying to do that stupid ice bucket challenge. Well, there were real people that we knew, real people who were very close to us in the larger Tolkien family, who were personally affected by motor neuron disease. Bless you. So here is our lovely friend, my lovely, lovely friend. And in this picture, it's a hard thing to look at Royd when he's been crying. But Royd Tolkien has been given a chance to live the life that his brother, Mike, wanted to live, but unfortunately was taken away from him. Because his brother left behind for him a bucket list of 50 challenges. That's right, 1/2 of a century. 50 challenges of things that he would like to do before he died. And I spent a wonderful time traveling with Royd Tolkien and Mike Tolkien in April 2.5 years ago. Maybe it was almost 3 years ago. Yes, that's right. It's 2016. Nearly 3 years ago, when I was visiting the locations and the sets for the production of The Hobbit. And we were there in Wellington to visit the sets of The Hobbit. And you know that Royd and Mike actually got to be in the film as background actors. And it's extras, as they say. We also took a trip to Auckland. And there we met up with Gamling. That's right, Bruce Hopkins, the actor who played Gamling in The Two Towers in The Return of the King. So there was Bruce Hopkins and Clifford from the OneRing.net, and Royd Tolkien and Mike Tolkien, and a couple of other wonderful friends, who work very closely with Craig Parker, who you know. Craig Parker played Haldir in Lord of the Rings. So you have Craig Parker's better half, business half, Mike Tolkien, Royd Tolkien, Bruce Hopkins, and myself, all of us taking a fantastic trip to the beaches on the far North Island where there's nothing but black sand, the most unusual sand, black, ebony black sand on this wild stretch of North Shore Beach. Beautiful. And we went walking and meditating and talking and had a wonderful experience. So having traveled to these exotic locations with Mike Tolkien while he was still alive, I've got to say it was very sad and very heartbreaking when Mike passed away. But Royd Tolkien shows that he's made of sterner stuff. He shows the indomitable will that Tolkien writes about that's in The Hobbits. Thank you very kindly. People are asking, where's Justin? Justin is backstage. He's hiding backstage. And it's really wonderful to have Justin around, and maybe we can convince him to come onto the show before the show is over. But sometime in 2013, Mike and Royd Tolkien started talking about going to Queenstown in New Zealand together. Queenstown is the adventure tourism capital of the world, with spelunking and bungee jumping and amazing thrill sports and adventure sports. Any adrenaline junkie would go down to Queenstown or the area around Queenstown, which is where they filmed many crucial scenes that are in the Two Towers film. However, Mike was forced to accept that he was, at the time, no longer physically able to do a lot of those things. And that little trip changed everyone's lives. And it was the last time that I saw Mike Tolkien alive, and I'm very, very emotionally moved by Royd's dedication to his brother, because before he left, Mike wrote this amazing list of 50 challenges that their mother typed up because Mike was no longer able to use his hands. If you've seen the movie, The Theory of Everything, with Eddie Redmayne, or if you know anything about the life of Professor Stephen Hawking, then you know what it's like when someone with motor neuron disease loses the use of their voice or their hands, their ability to communicate that way. So, how about that? It's really, really, really cool. This is what I want to show you, because this is heart. This is uplifting, and it is joy. This is joy of love. You guys, amid the grief, amid all the grief that the Tolkien family experienced with Mike's passing, there's a lot of love after all. And life is beautiful and wonderful after all. In the end of all things, I'm glad that you're here with me, Sam, at the end of all things. This is Royd's legacy that he is living for his brother Mike. So you'll find a feature story about that on the front page of theonering.net, and you will realize that there was a really fantastic precedent set for the brother, the older brother, to live the life and experience the thrill of life in honor of his brother who passed. So, there's a hole in my bucket. That's the name of their, if you go and take a look at Royd Tolkien's amazing website, it's called roydtolkien.me. You can support their project with your MasterCard or your Visa or your PayPal. And this is roydtolkien.me. And you can make a difference by being actually part of the story, and you can contribute to Royd's efforts to finish the adventure, to finish the actual adventure. Because Mike was ready to go on another adventure, but time and fate, destiny, had different plans for him. So, in honor of that, to create a legacy for his brother, Royd Tolkien is reaching out to all the fans, all the Tolkien fandom everywhere in the world, so that, you know, you can actually support what he's doing, and he can travel the world and do these things, and they're going to produce an entire feature. I believe that you guys are going to get a chance to be part of this wonderful magic, and they have the support of Jan Fleming and Mark Ordesky, who created The Quest. That's right, The Quest for ABC Network here in the United States. And everybody knows Mark Ordesky for helping be one of the producers on the Lord of the Rings film trilogy, and a dear friend of mine and everyone at theonering.net. So, together, they're going to be bringing a full feature documentary to life of Royd Tolkien doing all these wonderful things for Mike. Here's their producer statement on this website. This is at roydtolkien.me. I recommend all you guys go there and check it out. And one last image, because life is short, but life is sweet and beautiful. And there's still some good in this world worth fighting for. There you are, the brothers together at the front door of Bag End. That was on the trip that I went with them on the North Island back in 2013, so yes. So, it's very touching, very heartfelt, and it's true. You guys can be part of a true story. So, the Tolkien legacy lives on in many surprising ways. I think this is something that Professor Tolkien himself would heartily endorse. He would heartily approve of this. If Professor Tolkien were still here, I guarantee you, it would be really awesome. I'm sorry my voice is still kind of really bad. It's really, really bad. Because I did, 16 days of straight reading, and yes, good Iravandi, you're there in the chat room. If you guys are here watching our lovely show here at theonering.net, you could participate by coming in on the hotline. We have a TORN hotline. We also have Skype. I've just opened up my Skype right here. And we also have the hotline available. So, my phone is in there in the other production room. Maybe somebody will bring my phone out to me. I can't take any calls right now, but yes, we're talking sad stuff, Eru, but as Bilbo learned from the advice of Gandalf in the 1977 animated movie of The Hobbit, Gandalf says to Bilbo, "Always remember, Bilbo, when your heart wants lifting, think of pleasant things." And then for the rest of the movie, Bilbo has a voiceover where he's muttering to himself, bacon and eggs, my fireplace, hot chestnuts, sitting in the garden with cakes and my pipe and some long bottom leaf and reading the morning mail. And in the entire movie, that is something that you might call a mantra. Yeah, the very first time I ever encountered somebody reciting a mantra to themselves, you know, a self-empowerment mantra, it was Bilbo Baggins himself in the 1977 animated film. It doesn't happen in the book. So specifically, Gandalf does not necessarily give him that advice, but in the film, it's really brilliant because at the very end of the story, when he's going down into the tunnel for the very first time to have his first encounter with the dragon Smaug, Bilbo is trying to get brave. He's trying to screw himself up to do it, as Samwise talked about it in The Lord of the Rings. So poor Bilbo is struggling, and in his head, he can't figure out how he's going to approach the dragon, and he keeps talking to himself about all those pleasant things at hearth and home. His fireplace, his pantry, his food, and his garden, and his books, his favorite books. So very, very much, whenever you're involved with a moment of sadness, whenever you have found yourself caught in a moment of feeling, feel it. Feel it, let it pass through you. And in the end, remind yourself of how lucky you are. Shake it off. Taylor Swift. Shake it off. Remind yourself how lucky you are to be alive. Remember those who have passed. And hashtag gratitude. And you will always find yourself in a better place. There you know, there's my advice for the day. Now, back to the other subject of Mr. Bowie. It's really hard. It's really hard to deal with this because all of you fantasy fans out there who love The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, invariably, this is the same audience that loves The Never-Ending Story and The Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. For a whole generation, a very big generation of J.R.R. Tolkien fans, of which David Bowie was one. Mr. Bowie was here in my little documentary movie. There's a little documentary film that I wrote and produced. It's called Ringer's Lord of the Fans. And in this movie, we talk about what the nascent beginnings of Tolkien fandom were really like in the 60s. And in the 1960s, in the late 60s, when everybody in London was picking up the American counterculture with the hippies and the flower children and the vibe and the psychedelic drugs and the wild, colorful clothing, there was an underground rock and roll club in London that we learned about when we did our research for the documentary. And we found out that David Bowie and all these other great rock and roll stars were going to the Middle Earth Club in London to dance the night away. And, you know, David was still in music school at the time. He was still a student at music school in this time. And it's just fantastic. He may have just graduated, but life with the hipsters in swinging London in the late 60s was quite a cultural slice of pie, let me tell you. Bowie was always attached with Lord of the Rings fandom, even in a tangential way, in ways that you might not have realized. Because, you know, with Mark Bolan from T-Rex and Frampton, yes, that's right, Peter Frampton, and Bowie and all those guys. At the time, David was using his stage name Davy Jones because he started his recording career with Davy Jones. And then in North America, when the TV show The Monkees became really popular and all the teenagers were screaming about Davy Jones from the TV show, Mr. Bowie, rather clever about this, he began the first in a long series of transformations, chameleon-like changes of his stage persona. And it became something of a hallmark of his career in the 70s. His first hit records that were recorded and released in England in 1971 including Space Oddity, all recorded and inspired at the time when all this Lord of the Rings fandom was hitting the wavelength really hardcore. So Bowie, not only an amazing chameleon who changed his name from Davy Jones to David Bowie, to Aladdin Sane, to this amazing character Ziggy Stardust, the doomed glam rocker, and then 100 other great stage personae, Latin plural, that's a tough one. And amongst all the chitter chatter, amongst all the Tolkien fans, with the success of The Lord of the Rings in the 70s, which was a successful film for Ralph Bakshi, and then the ongoing fandom in the 70s and 80s, which caught us, and I was the next generation of David Bowie fans to pick up loving David with his smooth singing Lothario in the Let's Dance era. This was well after The Thin White Duke and Aladdin Sane and Ziggy Stardust. But in the early 80s, when it was all about The Never-Ending Story and Labyrinth and The Dark Crystal and even John Borman's Excalibur, all that in the early 80s, which coincidentally was the movie that John Borman went to direct because he could not succeed in getting The Lord of the Rings made. He decided to switch from Lord of the Rings, Sword and Sorcery, over to directing a beautiful young Helen Mirren in Excalibur and a very young Liam Neeson, who's in that film too. So by the time all this stuff happens, Bowie establishes himself as a really remarkable film actor. We're talking The Man Who Fell to Earth, Nicholas Roeg. Here's another piece of information to keep you guys looking up in your movie history almanac. The great, great horror and schlock film director, Roger Corman, who is most famous for putting Vincent Price in all those Edgar Allan Poe films that were brightly lit and so brightly colored, the Technicolor wave of late 60s films. The director of photography for Roger Corman was Nicholas Roeg. That is correct. So after working as a director of photography with Corman and doing Mask of the Red Death, which is by far his most remarkable piece of photography and one of Roger Corman's best collaborations with Vincent Price to do an Edgar Allan Poe adaptation, after all these connecting threads come together, Nicholas Roeg meets David Bowie and he realizes what a superstar he is, and he says, why don't you be the lead actor in my film, The Man Who Fell to Earth? Amazing. So for all of you younger generation kids out there who are wondering, what? David Bowie was in some other movies? You have to look this up, because this leads to the conversation about who David Bowie was going to play in the Lord of the Rings film. And we all know who that character was, but we're getting to that point. Yes, the point, and I do have one, we're getting to it. So witness now the early 80s acting genius of David Bowie. In fact, the vampire film, The Hunger, with Susan Sarandon and Catherine Deneuve, I mean, that movie in the early 80s set a great, great new standard of atmospherics in a vampire movie that was sensual, very sensual. There's a lesbian love scene, there's sensuality in this vampire story of The Hunger. It's fantastic, and it's David Bowie. Right after he had done that fantastic lead role for Nicholas Roeg in The Man Who Fell to Earth, what else happened after that? All of a sudden, David Bowie is working with Ryuichi Sakamoto, who's the most brilliant composer slash musician, pop star that you don't know that you don't know. And then there's Ryuichi Sakamoto and David Bowie in this intense POW drama called Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. A must-see. You have to see Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence in one of David Bowie's best lead roles. And then when you watch all that, you realize that's what Jim Henson was tapped into. When Jim Henson saw Bowie in these films, in The Hunger, in the Nicholas Roeg film, Man Who Fell to Earth, and in Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, which is devastating to watch, but so interesting and so seductive. What did Jim Henson say? Come on, David, I have just the job for you. We've got a bunch of goblins, we have a baby that needs to be kidnapped, and we have a story about a young woman on the cusp of newfound womanhood, which was thematically appealing to David, because David had written many a song about the advent, the advent from childhood to adulthood, and what a strange and emotionally fluid time that it is for any young woman. But David was sympathetic to what Jim Henson was talking about. And David said, this is fantastic. You need Jareth, you need the Goblin King, I'll bring it. And on top of that, why don't I write you 5 songs for the soundtrack for the film? On top of that, why don't I perform them with you and with the other Muppet performers? Frank Oz and Jim Henson, over the moon. They were so pleased and so happy. Yes. And then ultimately, as I can see in the chat room, eventually, David Bowie would go on to play other significant supporting roles in movies. Box office gold? No. Academy Award nominations? No. But still, David's presence in these films were perfectly attuned and brilliant, just brilliant. So there was him playing Tesla in the Christopher Nolan film, The Prestige. That's right, Lord of the Rings connection with Andy Serkis and David Bowie together. That's right, Gollum and David Bowie together in Christopher Nolan's masterpiece, The Prestige, where he plays Nikola Tesla. Rewind the clock about 15 years earlier, maybe 20 years earlier, Martin Scorsese decides to make a very controversial film, The Last Temptation of Christ. Who else to play Pontius Pilate, the Roman bureaucrat who was trying to handle these Palestinian nations and these Israeli nations? What does he do? He crucifies Willem Dafoe. That's right, David Bowie as Pontius Pilate, Willem Dafoe as Jesus in this amazing film. Have you seen it? Now, David only has a very small role in the movie, but it is quite potent. It's fantastic. And then jump ahead another 15 years, and there's David playing Andy Warhol. He is playing the most amazing artistic legend of American pop culture in the late 20th century, David doing a memorial for his friend, because he was friends with David Bowie, as was Brian Eno and everybody in the Velvet Underground, and Lou Reed. Bowie, Brian Eno, who produced and co-wrote 3 albums with David Bowie called the Berlin Trilogy. And there's Lou Reed, and everybody's friends with Andy Warhol. And guess what? Years later, David Bowie puts on the crazy fright wig and becomes Andy Warhol himself in the movie Basquiat. So talking about the strange, that's a headline from a newspaper article that I read, the strange acting genius of David Bowie. Why is all this information and film history so important? Because David was going to be the Hugo Weaving character of Elrond. Elrond, half elven. That's right. It would have been. If it had been just a different parallel universe where his schedule was available, where he wasn't touring, supporting his albums, because, 14 years ago, David was on a worldwide tour, for the album Reality. And then he took a long recording hiatus that was rather alarming for people, because people were starting to worry, where are you, David? What happened? And when I was in New Zealand at the time of the production of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, back in the year 1999, 2000, That's when David Bowie was on a worldwide tour for that album, and he was in New Zealand at the time. So if it hadn't worked out differently, if David was, and this is the greater conversation that has been out in the internet for a very, very long time. You guys don't act surprised. Don't act surprised, because if David had had the chance with scheduling and everything, you know that Peter Jackson and Fran were considering how appropriate it would be to have David play Elrond, half-elven. Now, a lot of other people who I know say, I can't watch a movie that has David in it because I can't see past the larger-than-life icon of who he is in rock and roll. So a lot of fans have told me, and in my ear, over the past 13 or 14 years, that if David Bowie had indeed played the role of Elrond, Liv Tyler's father, Arwen's father, that it would have been like, quote-unquote, constantly distracting, because in every scene you'd think, oh gosh, there's David Bowie. Oh gosh, there's David Bowie. But that's an interesting problem to have, isn't it? When your powerful presence as a performer, as a superstar of rock and roll, in fact, he was the last superstar. We will never have one again like David, that's for sure. I've heard it said, and I will accept it as possibly quite true, because I see the wisdom in this. They say that there were only 2 rock and roll stars ever. Elvis Presley was the first one. David Bowie was the last. And that's it. As far as bona fide, real rock and roll stars who have the legend and the body of work to back them up. Not somebody who's chasing after a hit record, but somebody who's really making art and making a huge impact on the music industry and the world. That would be it. Elvis Presley, who also transitioned into film roles, and then David Bowie, and that's it. So we're not going to have any more rock and roll stars. The music business has changed too much, too radically. Things are not quite so recognizable in the strata of music industry. It's all very different. So imagine, if you will, as much as I love Hugo Weaving, and as much as I really enjoy Hugo's delivery as V for Vendetta, and of course as Elrond and Agent Smith, and even more delightfully to see Hugo show up in Captain America as the Red Skull. And all these great, amazing, great performances from Hugo Weaving. Let your imagination cast out into the universe for just a little while longer. And imagine, if you will, how amazing and intriguing, how riveting it would have been to see David Bowie officiating over the Council of Elrond. Imagine all these people standing around, or in various cases, sitting, standing, talking, arguing, everything that Peter Jackson shot in that scene, the Council of Elrond. Imagine instead those strange, alien-looking, 2 different colored eyes right there in that scene. The ring cannot be destroyed by any craft that we here possess. Gimli, son of Glowing. Just let your mind wander through that stratospheric idea. Imagine what it would be like to have had David Bowie in the role. It would have been very difficult for him to come back and play Elrond again, because in the time of the production of the Hobbit film, that was when David was suffering most from cancer. Freaking cancer. The cancer that took his life. So it's about 99% likely that David would not have been able to reappear in any of the Hobbit films at all that were just made over the past few years, because David was very ill and he knew it. And so he went into the recording studio and worked with some legendary jazz musicians and his trusted producer and created the new album Black Star, which was released on his birthday 2 days before he died. Shockingly, completely shockingly, it achieves number one on the Billboard charts here in America as the #1 album in the United States, taking Adele off the charts. And there's Bowie at #1, posthumously achieving something that none of his other albums achieved in his entire storied career. So, music, fashion, creative arts, and film acting, all the bailiwick of David Bowie. Can you imagine, after how wonderful he was as Jareth, the Goblin King, how much we identify with him, and we love seeing David in all these different movie roles? Can you imagine just how freaking ultra cool it would have been for David to play Elrond? I'm quite open to your thoughts here, and quite open to anybody here. Oh, I'm seeing now the chat room. There's a lot of, yes. Yes, that's right. Yes, Marfles, that's right. Yes. Oh, you guys, oh, Ellen, you forgot about Basquiat. It's wonderful. I enjoy that film a lot. Oh, hey, there's Eravandi. Eravandi, you haven't seen any of these things? Go to the library and get yourself copies of The Last Temptation of Christ, Basquiat, The Prestige, and of course, I'm sure you've all seen Labyrinth. For a whole generation of people, the entire David Bowie gestalt is all about Jareth. Absolutely. Right. Making jokes, but I'm glad to see that people cared about his death. Yes, Anonymous. Thank you very much, my dear. Mr. Anderson. Hugo Weaving is a fantastic actor. Ellen Design says that you would have loved to have seen Bowie as Elrond. Yeah, it would have been so amazing. Yeah, you can actually imagine David doing that. Yeah, he would have, yes, exactly. It's not often you can imagine another actor in a role like that. Thank you, Eravandi. Intriguing. Yeah, freaking cancer. Yeah. So how about that? It's an intriguing concept. But neither here nor there, I encourage everyone on today's show, as we think about Mike Tolkien and his death, and we think about Mr. Bowie and his death, and we think about how legends live on with love and the power of memory. Just the way that Professor Tolkien drives that message home in the trailing chapters at the end of The Return of the King, you know, after the Field of Cormallen, after the ring is destroyed, and after Aragorn and Arwen are wed, and after the coronation and all that stuff, Professor Tolkien takes the trailing chapters at the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and they become very melancholy and rather bittersweet, and there's a constant reassertion of the theme that memory is a permanent connection to love and the past, and that memory serves humanity and serves the human condition in a way that is critically important to reminding us of who we are, where we've been, and where we're headed. So my advice again to everybody, while we think about Mr. Bowie having left us, and when we think about Mr. Mike Tolkien having also left us, and what a brilliant soul he was, I'm heartened, I'm uplifted, as always. I'm uplifted by the joy of living life and the love that comes across from Royd Tolkien wanting to make this amazing film project and do the bucket list of all of his brother's amazing challenges for him. And I'm amazed that there are producers and musicians out there, all the way from Kanye West, all the way down to Goldfrapp, and every other artist in between, thinking and making tributes to David Bowie. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to that uplifting remembrance, because that's what they left us with. That's what Mike Tolkien and what Mr. Bowie have left us with, is a great, energizing and uplifting memory of love. Love. In this modern day and age. Making a little joke on a David Bowie song, modern love, it walks beside me. It gets me to the church on time. Modern love terrifies me, but modern love makes me party. Modern love gets me to the church on time. Isn't it fantastic? Yeah, super good. So, I'm very glad to have gone down memory lane with all of you wonderful people this evening to actually talk a little bit about the powers of memory and love and how they make a new future. They carry forward into the future. It's something that is closely held by Latin American countries when they celebrate the Day of the Dead, as opposed to Halloween, which is what we celebrate in North America and other Western countries. But in Latin America, the Dia de los Muertos is the way of remembering the loved ones who've passed, so that they continue to live with us, and they continue to live on and live on and live on. It's fantastic. Yep, that's right. Tolkien girl, who are you going to murder? Are you upset? Oh, I'm standing. I'm standing right here. Hey there. Hey, Tolkien girl, you don't like Labyrinth? That's okay. It's not the perfect movie for everybody. In my opinion, The Dark Crystal is a greater film. It's a different film because The Dark Crystal has zero comedy, zero musical numbers, and you don't have, like, you know, all this fun and frolic. There's a whole lot of crazy frolic and fun stuff going on in Labyrinth, but that's okay. Not everybody has to love The Black Cauldron as much as I do. I mean, we had this conversation on Facebook when we were looking at the 30th anniversary of The Black Cauldron. And you know, it's okay. Not everybody thinks the movie is wonderful. Some people think The Black Cauldron is shite, but I think it's an amazing achievement, and I think it's awesome. But Labyrinth is a keystone, a major keystone in a whole generation of people finding a new relationship with David Bowie outside of his music and looking at him as a performer in film. So that's an intriguing connection. Yes. It just doesn't have to be your cup of tea. That's all right. Oh, hey, Thomas and the Magic Railroad? That's funny. Cute. Spirited Book is making fun of you, Tolkien girl, just a little bit. That's very cute. All right. Ellen, don't you worry about it. Now, I want to ask you guys, while we're thinking about it, you can come onto Skype, Spirited Book, or and if our wonderful friend Emily from London, any of our fans are watching the live show right now, I'm so glad to have you join us in this audience. I'm really glad to have you here. Skype is turned on, it's open, so if you guys want to come and say hey, come on in. Yes, nice rolling of the R's. Clifford, I can roll an R like anybody this side of Mordor. I can roll an R like anybody. So I encourage all you folks to say hi to me on the chat or on Skype. And here's a wonderful thing. Here's a wonderful thing. This is a tribute to Mr. David Bowie that oh yeah, Robin Williams as Bombadil. That was the other casting that we were talking about all the time. Yes, exactly. Robin Williams would have been the most perfect of all Bombadils, and we've lost Robin too. Really intriguing. There was another option for Elrond. I would have really liked to have seen, you know, Leonard Nimoy play Elrond or something like that, but he was much too old for the part. But it would have been intriguing to see him try that. Yes. Who would Alan Rickman have played? We also have to say another tearful farewell to the Alan Rickman fans, to Alan Rickman himself, excuse me, and to all the fans out there of Harry Potter and Die Hard and Love Actually and all these amazing films, Sense and Sensibility. Gosh, that was such a kick-ass movie, and Alan Rickman was great in that. We can definitely think about who would Alan Rickman have played in The Lord of the Rings? I'll give that just another moment of thought. Who could Alan Rickman have played in The Lord of the Rings? Do you know what? I think that I would have enjoyed seeing Alan Rickman as Denethor. That might be my call on that. Hey, no problem with John Noble. John Noble had a very difficult role to play because the way that it was written, it's very caustic and very harsh. He's very mean to Faramir. I mean, we'd never understand the psychological background of why John Noble played it the way that he played it. His Denethor pushes against Faramir in a way that is so resolutely negative, we don't quite know how the pieces click together in the family relationship, even with the extended edition of The Two Towers, where we first meet Denethor in a flashback with Boromir. God, he loves and embraces his son Boromir, but the way he treats his other son Faramir is just kind of one-sided. However, I notice that much of the dialogue, almost exactly word for word, the dialogue that Denethor has in Peter Jackson's adaptation is just like the book, because I just read the book a week ago to you guys, and the dialogue is almost exactly the same. So that mean, real ugly quality of the way Denethor is condescending to his son Faramir, it's in there, it's in the book, but it comes across in John Noble's performance as being slanted in a specific way, just so harsh. So perhaps it would be intriguing to think about Alan Rickman, who may have played Denethor with a slightly different twist. That would have been intriguing, don't you think? Yeah, Denethor II, Father of the Year. And you're right, Marfles. There's a good family resemblance between John Noble and David Wenham and Sean Bean. They actually do look like they could be in the same family. There's something. Oh, you can't picture Alan Rickman as Denethor? Okay, well, I don't mind. How about maybe let him play, who would Alan Rickman have played very well? I don't know. Maybe, oh, hey, maybe someone in the Hobbit trilogy. Who would Alan Rickman have played in the Hobbit trilogy? It's an interesting concept. Well, hello there, Spirited Book. How are you, sir? Are you there? Hello? Call ended. Well, I tried to answer it, but it didn't work. Oh, well, I tried, but it didn't work. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, hey, Thranduil. That's intriguing. Maybe make Thranduil look a little bit older instead of making him look like he's permanently stuck at the age of 33. A little bit of an older version. That's an intriguing idea. Yeah, intriguing. Yeah, Thrandy. I like that idea. Well, for all the fans out there, know that I am giving the love, bringing the love to Alan Rickman as much as I am to bringing the love to Mr. Bowie, as I am for Mike Tolkien. But that's fantastic. There's something that I want to read to you guys. I'm going to read it off of my tablet because this is something that just happened to me in person. Try again, Spirited, quick. If you want to call in, you better call in again because I'm about to read something. There it is. All right. That's working. Hey, Spirited.
Hello? Are we working this time?
Yeah, working fine now.
Sweet. I have no idea what that was about. It's like, oh, pick up the phone, it's still ringing. Looking at the stream, and it's like, oh, we picked up, no,
Well,
not working. It's like, what?
that's what technology is for, complications, right?
Exactly.
So happy New Year, Spirited Book,
yeah.
and Happy New Year to all of our fans who are watching Torn Tuesday. Hey there, buddy. How are you doing?
I am all right. Not the best at the moment. Exams next week, and a little ill at the moment. But you know,
Harsh.
fun times.
Yeah. Take some garlic supplements and some vitamins and get some sleep. Get some sleep. How'd you enjoy our readathon? How was that for you?
I wasn't there most of the time.
Oh dear, really?
I was in Disney World. It's like, God.
Really?
Yes, I went to Disney to see Star Wars again as well. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. Which Disney did you go to? Did you go to Anaheim or to Orlando?
Orlando.
Oh, all right. That my old stomping grounds where I used to live.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice and humid over there. So, how was your holidays? Everything's good for you, sir?
Oh yes, absolutely. I am so happy. I have the Lord of the Rings box set, extended edition, on Blu-ray. I am so happy. I have it now, and I can finally watch it over and over and over and over again.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. You got the big gold box? Blu-ray set?
Yep.
Oh, I love that. I love that big, beautiful gold box. It's one of my favorite things. But you know what I noticed? When you open up the Blu-rays and take a look at the individual slips of paper that they put inside each volume of the movies, right? It's a new type of paper artwork, or what you call key art. In the motion picture business, when you make a special item that goes in the DVD or it goes on the poster, it's called key art. But when you look at the key art for the Two Towers, what do you see? You see the biggest story spoiler in the Lord of the Rings world. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember it. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the Two Towers yet.
Oh, but do you have it handy? Do you have the Blu-ray handy right there?
30 seconds.
All right, I'll give you 20. I'll give you 20. That's too bad. I'm sorry that you missed out on the readathon because, well, for me, in particular, it was quite the ambitious thing. Being able to do that readathon was really ambitious effort for me, and I'm sorry that you missed a lot of it, but it was really fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was there for some bits.
Oh, that's good.
I'm looking through it now.
So take a look at the key art in the Two Towers. The key art that is it's the outside label on the box for the Blu-ray itself. And
Oh, hang on. I'm looking at the wrong thing then.
yeah, just the box itself.
Oh, right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Absolutely.
There's a big,
Gandalf
giant
the White.
Gandalf the White standing right in the middle of the thing.
Gandalf the White.
Right. Now, that means if you have a friend, God forbid, if you have a friend who wants to borrow your Blu-rays and has never ever seen The Lord of the Rings and doesn't know the story, when you loan them the Blu-ray, you're going to have to physically take that slip of paper out of the sleeve. So, I'm serious, you're going to have to. Otherwise, they're going to be like,
Absolutely.
I know, it's crazy.
Why? Watch this fellowship. Oh, Gandalf died. Sad face. Go to the second movie.
Yep.
Wait, what?
Do you know what? One of my favorite things to do when you introduce a newbie is they say, oh my God. They say, did Gandalf really die? Is he really dead? And I always tell them, yes. Yes, he's really dead. That's it. And then they have no freaking idea that he's going to come back in the Two Towers at all. And it just blows them away. It just blows them away. So
Cliff be trolling.
Cliff be trolling.
Yeah, exactly.
Ha ha ha.
Trolling all those new.
Yeah. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Pippin is on. All of our wonderful fans are here together. Spirited Book, it is so good to have you. How did you enjoy Star Wars: The Force Awakens. How did you like that?
Look, we can if we got into this,
Yeah?
it'd have to be another hour long
Okay.
on Tuesday because
Okay.
this is.
I know.
To describe how that movie was.
There's a lot to describe, but let me cut right to the chase. Do you think the accusation is fair that Andy Serkis's motion capture performance is just doing another Gollum 2.0, and that people have accused the character design of Supreme Leader Snoke as just looking like another version of Gollum with more scars on his face? What do you think?
I mean, looking back at I just watched what was it, Two Towers and stuff.
Yeah.
Gollum isn't what I remember him to be. I remember when I first saw it, it was like, oh wow, this is amazing. But now it's like, I don't know, it's different. It's now new with the CGI and such. And I thought Snoke was, well, first of all, he was a hologram, and that was.
Yes.
The song is like, whoa.
Snoke was doing a hologram because he's trying to create a different image of his stature and his size.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I mean, maybe I don't know. I think he could be. I think he's gonna be fine the way he is. I don't see any issue of him if he was looking like Gollum. He could look like Gollum all he wants, but if this is the character idea they're going for, then
it is.
let it be so.
But I don't know, man.
Gollum doesn't look like Andy. Andy looks like Gollum.
That's one way of putting it. Hello, everybody. Look who's just shown up on my show. Our show.
We only have a couple minutes left.
Yeah, look who's just shown up to say goodnight. Oh, yeah.
And good
Hey,
luck.
I agree with you, Ellen Design. When I saw...
Thanks for joining. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, and by the way, thank you, Spirited Book. It's really good to have you on the show again. And I want to wish you luck with all of your endeavors and your exams, especially. And my strongest recommendation to you, before I see you next week, go and watch some of those David Bowie films that we talked about tonight, the ones you haven't seen, and let me know what you think.
Okay, I will attempt to.
Yeah,
Do so.
attempt. Make an attempt.
Wave.
We're waving. Everybody's seeing Justin on the screen now.
All right. Goodbye.
Goodbye for now, Mr. Spirited Book.
I'm waving to people. Steph, Lord of the Rings.
Bye.
Hey, Justin. Sarah, Marples, Eruvandi is calling it now. Smoke is actually ant-sized. I believe it. Hey.
He could be ant-sized,
I
but
wanted
yes.
to talk about. I wasn't going to come on the show, but I really wanted to talk about the big Peter Jackson news today.
Please share with us some of the breaking Peter Jackson news today.
Peter Jackson has resigned from Weta Workshop. He is maintaining his ownership stake, his 1/3 ownership stake, but he's stepping away from Weta Workshop and all the day-to-day.
Intriguing.
And people are asking.
Is
why-
that going to...
Look, the torn hotline. Where's
wow.
your phone?
It's being charged in the other room.
Oh boy, no wonder. Hi, this is Justin. Who's calling? Hey, Tolkien girl.
Hello, Tolkien girl. How are you, love?
I'm alright. How are you, Cliff?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm holding the phone right next to my microphone because your voice sounds rather faint. It's so good to have you here at the closing of the show. How are you?
You're very close to his heart right now.
Yes, you are.
I tried to call in, but he was taking too long.
So
Well-
what brings you to the show? Why are you calling in?
Oh, I just wanted to say hey, because I haven't been around for a long while. Like, I haven't even been in Barley's chat. Things have been insanely busy.
Well, we miss you.
Oh, it's so good to have you back and saying hello.
We totally miss
You
you.
guys a lot.
Oh, honey, you're so sweet. You're such a sweetheart. It's lovely to have you on the show. Always. Yeah.
You're getting many waves in the chat room.
Yeah, you're getting a lot of waves. Sarah made a good joke. Start talking Star Wars and Justin appears. Go figure.
What are you talking about?
My buddy.
That's exactly.
So what do you think of Star Wars? What's your answer to the big question? How big is Snoke?
Now, see, if I start talking about Star Wars, Spirited Book is going to start killing me. Because I didn't like it as much as he did. Like, sure, I loved it. Like, the first time I went to go see it, we went to go see it on premiere night, and it was amazing. But thinking about it and seeing, like, actual people being calm and criticizing it and having legitimate thoughts about it, I'm still love it, but it's diminished a little tiny bit.
It was what, a tiny bit?
It's diminished a little tiny bit.
Fudged? You mean fudged? You mean messed up a little bit? Oh.
Diminished.
Oh, diminished. Oh, I see. I see.
So like, yeah, just like, because the whole argument that The Force Awakens is just like A New Hope 2.0 kind of makes sense. I can see it.
I think that was deliberately done because there isn't a 7-year-old alive who's going to sit down and watch A New Hope and get the same, visceral reaction the way that we did. It's like it's a new day, it's a new era in filmmaking, so you might as well do what J.J. Abrams intended to do. It was half a remake and half a reboot. Don't you think?
Yeah, I totally get that. It's it's totally that. I saw something somewhere, so specific, saying that this was like, you have to refamiliarize yourself with the time period and what's going on before you can start doing new things.
Right.
Which I totally agree with.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk more about this with you. I hope you join us for the next
Yes,
few
please do.
episodes because we want to talk a lot more. And
We do.
I hope you can call in next week.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Yes,
absolutely.
please do. It's lovely to have you, and you've got Spirited Book in the chat room raging against your comments on Star Wars, but that's okay too.
All right. So we'll chat with you next week.
Okay.
All right, love you guys.
Thank you. Love you too, sweetheart, and Happy New Year. Thank you.
We've got
Well done.
30 seconds left
So,
in the show.
do you think
just-
that's going to impact James Cameron's work with the Weta changes, or is
No, it has to do with a new law that is that went into effect.
Ah.
That's going into effect in April. That holds business owners,
Oh.
all business owners, accountable for workman's comp and the health and wellness of every employee.
Oh, that's intriguing.
So Peter
Okay.
Jackson is personally liable if anybody gets hurt or sick.
Oh, I see.
Not just the company.
Oh.
So it's a change in Australian law. It's very controversial.
New Zealand law.
And-
Yeah, I see.
And,
Yeah.
and because it puts him at risk, and he doesn't actually run day to day. And Richard Taylor has been taking a step back, and he's hired more people. And who's the other guy? Not Dravinsky, but who's the other producer? There's 3 partners in Weta.
That would be Tanya Roger,
No,
who
she's
is.
not a partner.
She's not? I
No.
thought she was.
No, Eric.
Yeah, I thought it was
I forget.
Sir Richard Taylor and
Peter and one other guy.
Peter and another fellow.
Anyway,
Intriguing
Peter
news.
Jackson.
Intriguing news.
big news. We've reached out to get
Hello,
more
Mr. Murphy.
information. So look for it. You can check our Facebook. We posted a link to the story on our Facebook page, and we'll be hopefully updating with more information because we really want to find out. It's been wonderful to be back again for
Has-
this short time. Thank you for joining
It
us.
has been wonderful.
Back to our weekly grind now that we're done with the holidays and we're done with reading Lord of the Rings.
Well,
Here we go. Back to Torn
here we go.
Tuesdays.
Back to Torn Tuesday.
every
It's
week.
lovely to be here.
Follow us on YouTube and Ustream, but follow us on YouTube.
And for all
I'm
of
gonna go turn the camera off.
You're going to go turn the camera off, and I will give you one final edict, or perhaps a request. Maybe you could call it a command. But if you are a Lord of the Rings fan and David Bowie fan, and you love Christopher Nolan and what he does with Batman movies and Inception, get your hands on The Prestige, if you haven't seen it. Because it's Andy Serkis and David Bowie together. It's fantastic. You're going to love it. You're going to love that movie. So hats off to everyone. A lot of love to everybody, and Happy New Year. Stay safe and show some love to everybody around you. Hashtag gratitude. I love you guys. We'll see you next week. This is Clifford Broadway from theonering.net, signing off. Good night.